something about your movie, why I made a curator's pick of the Hollywood Fringe Film community, heart,
This is another great episode of The Film Review.
We are the husband and wife team. We are the husband and wife team. We are the husband and wife team. Stay tuned. We're the husband and wife team. I'm Crazy D.
Tracey.
And this is the film review. Stay tuned. We got a lot to talk about. We are the husband and wife team that review movies, music, culture, politics, and society. This is the film review. Movies, music, culture, politics, and society. We're the husband and wife team. I'm Crazy D.
Tracey.
And we review movies, music, culture, politics, and society. Sunday at 5:30 on Crazon Dion page on Facebook. Live stream. The film review. Movies, music, culture, politics, and society. This is the film review. What's going on, people? This is another great episode of the film review. Movies, music, culture, politics, and society. We are the husband and wife team. I'm Crazy D.
I'm Tracey.
And we review movies, music, culture, politics, and society. And do we have a great one for you today as I begin to populate? We're going to be talking about the new movie that just hit the theaters called The Public.
Yeah.
We're also going to be talking about The Best of Enemies. We're going to also be speaking on and discussing about the new show called The Film Review, Music Review Show, which is going to be debuting April 30th. Then we're going to round up talking about the election that just finished happening in Las Vegas, primary election. And we're going to talk about the young man named Stretch Sanders, his candidacy, making history as the youngest in Las Vegas to run at 24 years old. We're going to talk about that. Let me do some population real quick. Let me share this to group or so. Give me a second.
While you're populating, the movie The Public, we learned about it from an interview by Rhymefest. He was on like the Breakfast Club, he was on Sway in the Morning, and he talked about his new film produced by Emilio Estevez. And from what we heard about the film, it sounded really interesting, and then we went online and read up on the film, and then we found out that the film would be showing in Las Vegas. So, of course we had to go and see it. And it's an independent film, and we're really, really big on
checking out
independent films.
Right.
And it was worth seeing.
Was it worth seeing?
Good.
Was it worth?
Excellent.
We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it because that's the lead in. Was it worth seeing?
Yeah.
And then
it was worth seeing.
Then we went to go see
The Best of Enemies.
Best of Enemies. Now, is it just the same old civil rights movie, or is it more? So we're going to be talking about that again, and of course, the election happened, and the primary happened, and we're going to talk about that. We don't want to get into that too soon, so we'll give it a section right here. Let me finish populating here and populate out to the people. But how's your week been going since last Sunday? How's your week been going?
Allergies, but other than that,
allergies. Allergy season, people.
Season.
And it's heightened because they've been doing a lot of building out in Las Vegas lately.
Lots of building.
And it's been just heightened with the allergies.
Right. And what did the allergist said, people are flying in plants.
That's right. And trees. And grass.
And it's changing the environment.
The ecosystem. That's right. So people will come out here to not be infected or affected by things that will cause allergies. And well, guess what? They are affected because they brought their lifestyle with them, or what they were used to seeing. The landscape, we'll say.
Right.
Movies, music, culture, politics. Let's talk about who's in the film for the public.
The Public, starring Emilio Estevez, Jenna Malone, Gabrielle Union, Alec Baldwin, Kristen Slater, Taylor Schilling, Michael Kenneth Williams, Richard T. Jones, Jeffrey White, Susanna Thompson, Spencer Garrett, Jacob Vargas. It was a stellar cast. Great acting. And of course, Rhinefest. Great acting. Did like a really good job. And he had been working on this film, he said, for years.
Since 2007.
Yeah, and he didn't have a huge budget, but what he did have was great friends, talented other actors who just came through and were a part of the film based on what the film is about, which is the homeless community.
So, if for those who don't know, the Public is short for the public library, right? Film review. I'm still populating here, so excuse me as we go through. But it stands for the public library, and the movie is based out in Cincinnati, Ohio, downstate, which would be southern Ohio.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We're from Cleveland, Ohio, which is northeast Ohio, northern Ohio. And it's based from out of Cincinnati, Ohio, which is down by Dayton, closer to Columbus, music, movie, culture, politics, and society. So it's based in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yep.
Is on
Cincinnati Library.
Cincinnati Library, that's right.
Yeah.
And the whole aspect of what's going on as far as the piece is concerned,
Right.
is that it's a winter snap.
Yeah.
Anyone who lives in the Ohio Valley region,
Yeah.
like Cincinnati they have a river. We have a lake.
Yeah.
Anyone who knows about cold snaps,
Yeah.
Arctic chill snaps
Yeah.
in the Ohio Valley region,
Right.
will know that it gets really cold.
Yeah, like Midwest or East Coast.
I mean, if you're in Buffalo, New York, you can feel
Yes.
the pain of
Yeah.
like what Cleveland, Ohio has, because we share Lake Erie, right? So there's a cold snap happening as the story opens up, and the homeless during the day,
Right.
the library opens up at about 9 a.m.
Right. Yeah.
and the homeless during the day use the library as a refuge during the cold snap that's happening in
Right.
Cincinnati, Ohio at that time,
Right.
right? And so they're there and they're feeling this cold snap,
Yeah.
and they're using the library, but the cold is going below
Yes.
zero.
Yes.
Now,
And all the shelters are filled.
all the shelters are filled,
Right.
right? There's a lack of shelters,
Yeah.
and as the story unfolds, you find that there's a lack of caring
Yeah.
towards the homeless, right?
By some politicians.
By some politicians, and they act as if they have done enough to help,
Yeah.
but they haven't. So again, like we said, they use the library during the day as a refuge. So they use the computers, they read books, they they use the restrooms
Right.
to wash
Right.
and do all that, right?
Which is true. So when watching this film, I thought about the library because back home I worked near a library. Well, when I was younger, I worked.
You actually worked in the library.
Which
you were
is
a
good. So if
librarian.
you have like young kids who are looking for summer jobs or in college, and I mean the library is just like a great job to But when I moved on older as an adult after school, a couple of me and my coworkers, I worked downtown, we would go to the library during lunch and like magazines, movies, and stuff like that.
Hey, what's going on, Angela Maddox? Thanks
Hey,
for
Angela.
chiming in.
And we would see the homeless. They would come in, they would get on the computers, they would read books. So when I saw this movie, that made me think about, hey, that's true. They do. Yeah, the homeless, they do. They wait for the libraries to open. They go in and they educate themselves. And they get on the computers and they're reading books and they're trying to stay warm. So this made me think about that, so.
Thinking about the library for 1 second, when my wife worked in the library as a librarian, we were young,
Yeah.
and I was a DJ, and you called and told me they're getting rid of the vinyl.
Oh yeah, and you can't
Right?
even
They
have
were
the
closing
vinyl.
out the vinyl
Yeah.
because it was turning into CD.
Yeah.
CD delivered information, and I came in and I went through, and it was a smorgasbord of vinyl.
Yeah, tons.
And I mean, I just went through and picked it up, stuff that
Jazz.
was jazz, soundtracks to
Blues,
classic movies,
gospel, everything.
50 cents a vinyl.
Yeah.
Full length vinyl at 50 cents. It was
Yeah.
like a smorgasbord, and I was young then, and I didn't have everything that I needed. I was pushing carts at the time.
Yeah.
And so I picked up what I could, and I just looked at the rest and said, wow, all of this is going to go to waste. But anyway, that's just a side view. So back to the public. So again, it's a cold snap, and they're using the restrooms to keep themselves clean, and they're using the library again to read or be on the computers to be in refuge during the day. But when the library closes at 9 o'clock, the end of their, not say good time, but leisurely time of being able to fight or not have to fight the elements will come to an end every day.
Yeah.
So you wonder why, in steps the librarian.
Right.
I guess you would say he's like the head of the
librarian,
department of his department.
Yeah.
Amelia Estevez's character,
Right.
who comes in and he is compassionate and caring for the homeless.
Yeah.
It's really his policy that's in place
Right.
that's really allowing them to even come in.
Right.
And at the beginning of the film, you see this, you see a new display that they got in, which is a large stuffed taxidermied
White
polar bear. Right?
Name? What did they name him?
What did they call him?
Barry White.
Barry White. That's right. They sure did.
Yeah.
They called him Barry White. And his existence there in the library is a metaphor for the film, but we'll get back to that in a second. All right, so Amelia Estevez's character is, as the film opens
Hey, D'Angelo.
up. Hey, what's up, D'Angelo? Thanks for chiming in and watching. As the film begins, the Amelia Estevez character, his character is embroiled in a situation where there is a lawsuit that's been placed against the library because they had to escort a homeless person out because the patrons over a period of time were complaining about his body odor.
Right.
I guess he must have been one who did not partake in using the restrooms to freshen up every day.
Yeah, because some are mentally ill
Some.
that are on the street, homeless.
Some.
And so he didn't think about washing himself. He was mentally ill.
As the story is told.
Right.
Right? So He's embroiled in this. Him himself.
Yeah.
The library is named. The
Yeah.
trustees are named.
Security.
And his head security guy
Right.
is named in
Right.
this lawsuit because
Right.
they escorted him out.
And that was
they
just
said
the one-
they violated his civil rights.
Yeah, and that was just one of many stories in this film. Great
yeah.
film,
Mhm.
multiple stories
So-
going on.
So as the situation unfolds,
Right.
this is what the head security person and Emilia Estevez's character are embroiled in this lawsuit. So their job security is pretty much on the line. We can say that much, right?
Right.
So it's another. So the next day,
Right.
they find out that a homeless person
Yeah.
has passed due to the elements, and they can't find another homeless person, which is who is a supporting character in the
Yeah.
story, but very important to them because he seems to have all the facts. So this is the initiating event and the dramatic need that is given because it's an ensemble cast.
Right.
So this is the dramatic need that is given to the homeless. They call them patrons that come into the library.
Right.
The homeless patrons that come into the library. That is their dramatic need, and their initiating event is the homeless person dying and not being able to find one of the pivotal characters. Right.
Right.
So the character played, but let's go through the cast real quick because we hadn't gone through the cast. That way we can pull and give you more because we talked about
Rhymefest.
Rhymefest. He plays one of his role is very pivotal, and we're gonna get to him also.
Yeah, it is. But Michael Kenneth Williams.
Michael Kenneth Williams,
great actor.
So we'll go through it as I tell the story,
Right.
Because I'm only going to go so far, and then you can see the
so you
film
can
after
see the
that,
film.
right?
Yeah.
So Michael Kenneth,
Because believe me, what we're telling you doesn't really give the film justice because it's just like it's so intricate and so many different characters and storylines going on within this film.
So Michael Kenneth Williams comes to the Emilia Estevez character.
Right.
Who does Emilia Estevez
Emilio Estevez, he plays Stuart Goodson.
Stuart Goodson. He comes to Stuart.
Right.
And Michael is
Jackson.
Jackson. He plays Jackson. Jackson comes to Emilia Estevez, Stevens, and tells him that they should keep the library open. Right. Because of this. The person froze to death, and they don't want to die because he has limited clothing.
Right.
He has a top coat, but it's not meant for Arctic freezing.
Right.
So he's like, let us stay here tonight.
Right.
And he was like, well, the library is not a refuge, right? So this is going on. Now remember, in the back of his mind, he's got this lawsuit that they're going to have to pay out a certain amount of money to this homeless guy for violating his civil rights, right? For not letting him stay in the library and violate it, even though they were doing company policy, right?
Right.
So he goes to Jeffrey Wright's character. What's his name?
Anderson.
He is the supervisor, over the library. He's the man.
Head administrator.
Yeah. And he goes to him and he says, "Can we keep the library open?" And he says, that really what's happening, your job is on the line, and so you shouldn't be trying to hatch these type of things out.
Right.
And then as he says this, the homeless people are deciding to stage a sit-in, and that is what kicks the whole movie off from there. That's when you're really introduced to Alec Baldwin's character. You're introduced to
Christian Slater,
who is running to be mayor of the city.
Right.
And you're introduced to all of these intricate characters that play a part. You find many different characters arcing in this piece. It is a beautifully put together piece of filmmaking because the ensemble cast, the ones that are in lead and some secondary, you see the arc in them.
Right.
right?
Right.
And so this is a film well worth seeing.
Ernesto, the security guard.
Ernesto, the security guard, played by
Jacob Vargas.
Okay, and let's
his
go
role
through
is
some
major.
of the names.
His role
Who
is
else?
major. Richard T. Jones is the chief.
Richard T.
Chief
Jones.
Edwards.
Yeah, he plays Chief Edwards. He's the one
Yeah.
that there's story beats in this film.
He called in
We're
Alec Baldwin.
Yeah, he called in Alec Baldwin, but he is the story beat that says, "Hey,
yeah,
Alec Baldwin, you're actually going to be there."
Right.
You know what I mean? And you'll see what we're talking about when we're in the film.
Gabrielle
Union, she does art.
Yeah.
Right?
Because in the beginning, her character was not too likable.
Not too likable.
But she pulled through in the end.
She pulls through
Hey,
in the
Rosalind.
end. Yeah. D'Angelo says, "Hey, I gotta look him up."
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
you do.
look him up.
You have to look up the various characters. You have to look this up.
Yep. Check out the film, The Public. And really worth seeing.
Really
good.
worth seeing. So we're gonna go through the technical side of the film, but that's pretty much the setup. We gave you the setup. You have to go to the theater and see this film because it's topical, and the way that they tell the story and the various arcing characters that's within it, right?
Yeah.
So we talked about Rhymefest. Rhymefest is an MC.
Right.
And this is his first acting job, and like we told you,
he's also an activist.
He's an activist, activist MC. I would say more activist and MC together. Activist MC. Yeah. And this is his first acting role. You mostly know him. He wrote Jesus Walks.
Oh, he wrote.
But I mean, he wrote Jesus Walks for Kanye.
Yeah.
Right?
A lot of Kanye's early stuff. Rhymefest was the writer.
But Jesus Walks was the one who penned.
Yeah.
Jesus Walks, right?
Conscious writer.
Very good. Right?
Yeah.
So he's in here, and this is his first acting job.
Right.
And he pulls this character off, and it's and the way that Amelia Estevez wrote the script.
Right.
The way he peels back the onion.
Yeah.
The way that he unveils things without having to have it said.
Yeah.
But how it's unveiled within moving picture form. That's what makes a great film.
Yeah.
This is a great film. He said he had to go independent because the national the Hollywood system
they didn't.
was not giving it. Rosalind says, "Hey Tracey,
hey
what's going on, Rosalind? Thanks for chiming in."
Yeah.
We have to say, so let's go through it first. The storytelling. When you watch film is not like stage, because when film first came out, it was silent. So the story had to be told to you even before they started putting in the little slide blocks where they would have the writing. It had to be told to you through moving picture. So everything had to be cut and edited. In the beginning, there was no cutting or editing. And then it was told to you in picture form. So the way the storytelling is told is certain things that happen within the film that it is not spoken, but it is shown to you in the images, right?
Yeah. Like for example, I wonder. I'm like, how long is this stand in? Like, so the library closed at 6, and
I closed at 9.
Well, she was coming to. It was supposed to. She was coming to meet him at 6.
It was 9. It was 9 because it was getting dusk, right? It was it was cold. It was already night when she got there.
So then time had passed, and I was wondering how late it was because then you see the media pulling up.
Yeah, how long did this stand? How long did the sit-in happen?
Right, they showed the telephone, and on the phone it showed the time. It was like 1:39 a.m. Right. So they use that type of imagery, like they would scan the phone, or if you wanted to. We knew it was Cincinnati because they showed like the library, like the top of the library had the name.
Right.
And so through imagery, like it wasn't spoken, but
it didn't say, "Hey, welcome to Cincinnati Library."
Yeah, when the patrons came in, no.
See, this is what it is. Any great film opens with a skyline.
Yeah.
Then it cuts to different roadways.
Right.
Then it'll cut to the building that is the main purpose or focus point. Then it'll flash to something that lets you know what it is without it having to be spoken.
Yeah.
And then it begins the live action with the dialogue. That's pretty much a setup of a great film. And this, Emilio Estevez does that. And what I love about it is the storytelling through picture form.
Yep.
The imagery of showing the homeless outside leading into they start with the skyline, they show you the different streets, then they show you what the picture is going to be about, then they show you the focus point, which is the library
and we
building.
can't forget they actually included homeless people in this
yes they
film.
did, they actually did. And then the use of grain in the production, in the image, beautiful, gives it a classic but yet timeless feel. Grain on movies is just excellent. For those coming in, we're reviewing the film The Public.
Sharon.
Hey, what's going on, Sharon? Thanks for chiming in. We're doing The Public, reviewing The Public.
Right.
And it's a great film to take the family to see. Well, take the family that are 18 and over to see it.
And, okay, so we know that like some of the independent films, unlike the larger films, are in limited release in some places. So if it's not in a local theater, sometimes you can find it on like Amazon Prime will have it up, or like the Cox On Demand will have a section for the independent films that are just now released. You can also see them on demand. So if it's not in any theaters, see if you can check it out that way.
But this film is a film that you should see in the theater because it's definitely, all the speakers were playing, giving you all of the left, right, the traffic, the sirens, everything was in it. You could feel it. It was just the way it is. But anyway, I was talking about grain. Grain sets a production apart. Having grain in an image purposefully to give it that classic film look. Beautifully done. It's nothing worse that I could even stand is looking at a production where it looks like it's just DSLR. And DSLR gives you a real crisp image, and it gives you everything. You think that it's great, but it is not film. It gives you a great quality, but it's not film. You have to put that effect to bring that image to life, because that's what the eye is used to seeing. So the grain in it is excellent. The arcing of the characters, like we talked about before. Then there's a big reveal at 2/3 of the film end. You find out something and you're like blown away, and as it reveals through, it's revealed to you first as the viewer through the mouth of what's his face from Saturday Night Live,
Alec Baldwin.
Alec Baldwin. It's revealed through his voice, and then it reveals out to the rest of the people, that are in the that are having to sit in.
But you get the visual first because the camera kind of,
brings it to you first. The use of the library as a character, going through and showing you the different sections of the library, and then bringing it in again to the live action, showing it it's like a living organism within this story, using that as a character.
You know what I just thought about? I thought about, speaking of Emilio Estevez, because this is his project, the film The Breakfast Club. That film, the entire film took place in the library
of the school. And then they used some parts of the school. So it's that had an independent film feel to it, even though it was major studio. Right. So
Well, John Hughes had an independent type feel.
He had an independent type feel,
director.
But he was the use of literature, of classic literature in the film, moving the plot line along, seeing the intelligence of the homeless.
Yeah.
Even though people thought of them as bums, but seeing who they were as individuals, right?
Yeah.
And having an understanding and getting an understanding of what they went through. Some were veterans.
Yeah.
Why do they treat the veterans? Why do they treat the veterans so poorly? That's the $1 million question on all this. Like, you send the poor off to war.
Right.
And then when they come back, they should be heralded and advanced because they're doing what the rich family won't allow their
they
children
should have
to do.
employment.
They should have employment
and shelter, homes, you know, available for them. And then a few of the homeless, you know, you hear some of their stories, and the one in particular, he said, "Hey, I lost my job, and from that point on, I was just homeless."
Right.
So, but yeah, a lot of them were veterans.
Lot were veterans. So then you come to what we're going to say right now. This is going to be a shocker to people. So close in to the beginning of 20. Can you believe we're in April?
Gosh.
We're going to be saying Merry Christmas pretty soon, people. April already. April 2019. April 7th, 2019. Unbelievable. Listen. This film is the film review best picture candidate for 2019 along with Yardie.
Another independent film.
If you have not seen Yardie, we review Yardie. That is up on Amazon Prime to watch, right? But you should try to find it in theaters to feel that full theater experience because Idris Elba and the surround
he directed
sound,
the film.
The mix on it, the editing, the auteur,
the music,
vision that he has as far as music as a character, the character arcing,
Jamaica,
and just Jamaica, and it's
in England also,
right?
So those two areas,
right. It's just incredible, and this right here for what we've talked about before. These are so far two. We've seen a lot of films this year, right? And these two are candidate for best film.
Excellent films
for what we've talked about.
Now in the public, in the middle of the film, because I don't want to give the film away, you have to go see it. I'm like crying in the middle of the movie.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's a good film. It's touching. I see why it was a passion project for the actors we named. Right. And those are excellent actors, you know, and these are actors who make really big money. But they took the time and they didn't get the type of money they normally make. But just because of the topic and because of the script, and it's such an excellent film, and it's such a humanitarian type film, it grabs your heart, you know. And great film. So I guess we better. It's so good we keep talking about it. So we better wrap it up.
So what would you rate?
I would give it a 10 because the acting is excellent, and then the topic is what we see. It's life, everyday life. I mean, the writing was really, really good. I don't know. I would just give it a 10. The film, the backdrop of Cincinnati. Really good film. Right.
I mean, ultimately, you have to go see this film.
Yeah.
You have to watch this film.
Right.
It's just there.
Yeah.
People, it's just there. It's up there. It's well worth seeing.
And there's all people from all backgrounds in this film. All
see those are the best films. You know what we talked about when we were in the car coming back from it? We talked about Crash.
Oh yeah,
it reminded of Crash because it had an ensemble cast.
Yeah.
It represents what America is.
Right.
The quote unquote melting pot that America is, the various groups of people. It wasn't all just European Americans in it.
And all economic backgrounds.
Economic
Wait
backgrounds.
till you see the film.
And everyone,
they weren't all poor.
And everyone had part in the outcome.
Yeah, Because some of the homeless are mentally ill, and some of them are wealthy, but they're mentally ill, so they're on the street. And so it's just a combination of just diverse background, diverse as far as an economic, and just great film.
I mean, just a great film. So you gave it a what?
I gave it a 10.
Yeah, I have to give it a 10 also.
Yeah.
See this film, okay? So we just finished talking about The Public.
Right.
And now we're going to take a break for a second to talk about the new film review program that's coming on. It's called the Film Review Music Review, which debuts April 30th globally. That means you're going to be able to see it on your TV sets, people, as we work this out, right? And you know, anyone who knows Crazy D, you know, let me just say this: people will know who the real person is behind something when that person is no longer there and that situation is no longer happening. So you will know who the real person is behind it and the real talent behind it that brought people together just by that. So I'll say that, because I'm not going to toot my own horn, but you know, we're just here to tell it like it is. Now, we have artists, people, from Ohio, Alabama, California, Nevada, who have checked in with music. I mean, jamming music. What sets this show apart, the film review, music review show, is we're not just reviewing music. We're not just showing you videos. We are reviewing and showing you videos, but we are pushing for these songs to be seen, heard, recognized, and appreciated in independent and Hollywood films. When you have jamming music that has a message, that has that sound that can make a great soundtrack in a film, in the back of the club, bamming in the club, or segues in film, sequences in film where they need music. Why not have those independent artists that are hip-hop influenced or are hip-hop artists, right? And that's what sets the situation apart. Let me continue with who have already sent in music and videos. People from Illinois, Florida, Louisiana, and Seattle have checked in and sent in music.
New Jersey,
right?
also.
Well, yeah, New Jersey. Yes, that's true. That's true. That's true. I didn't put that down there, but that's true. New Jersey. Apologetic about that, New Jersey. You know how New Jersey.
You have family there.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We do have family there. So, yes, these people have chimed in, sent their music in, and you will see these music and you will see the review. Now, let me lay the ground rules out now early.
Right.
Every song that you see on there will not have a review actually on the program, because we will be there for hours. You know what I'm saying? Because it's an hour program, and we're going to get in there, but you will be able to see the reviews on LordlandFilms.com. Right? You'll be able to see the written reviews on the videos. And as we cycle around, those reviews will then be put on film, and you'll be able to see it as we go. But you will see jamming music. You will see independent artists, hip-hop, and artists that were influenced by hip-hop that bring this. The deadline to submit music is April 15th. April 15th, approaching early. It used to be tax day, but then they started moving it tax day to the 17th and the 18th. I don't know why that is, but it used to be tax day, but it's April 15th, and then the show debuts globally April 30th, and all that is going to be put out there. We've been banging hard on it. People have been coming through, sending their music through, and we have open slots available for advertisers. You have a business, you have a product, you have a service, you have a web show. Come advertise with this, because this is the big thing. You know what I'm saying? And it's one thing that you know is Crazy D is and his wife are always consistent. Consistency is the difference, makes the difference, because consistency has to do with word is bond. So April 30th, the show comes out, and again, we're going to film it. It's not going to be streamed, so you're going to get to see the full effect of what Crazy D can do as an editor and as a filmmaker, right? So get ready for that. And that's coming up April 30th. Deadline for advertisers to get in contact with me is April 15th also. And all that is on my Instagram, Crazy D Film Dude. You can go right there, get the information. It's written up. Or you can go to Crazon Dion right here or the film review on Facebook, and you can read the information about how you can get in contact with me, and we can make this happen. We can have you going through, the film review, music review show. April 30th. Deadline to submit music and to be an advertiser. Two separate things, but April 15th. All right. So now we just finished talking about the public.
Yeah.
And we just finished talking about the film review show called the Music Review Show, debut on April 30th. But now we're going to talk about another film entitled Best of Enemies.
Yeah.
Let's go through the cast on that.
Now that's starring Taraji P. Henson, Sam Rockwell, Babu Cisse, Nick Siri, Wes Bentley, and H. Bruce McGill. Great cast.
Great cast. It's another ensemble piece.
Yep. Naja K. Bailey.
And you get to see again characters' arc in this picture.
Right.
Okay.
Taraji P. Henson plays Ann Atwater, and Sam Rockwell plays C.P. Ellis.
C.P. Ellis. Boy, I'm telling you. Okay, we're gonna get to that. I don't wanna spoil the review. We're gonna get to this, okay? So the question is this the same old civil rights film, or is it something more? Right?
Because we debated if we were gonna go see her.
Yeah, we debated because I didn't want to see anything.
But Taraji P. Henson, we said let's go see her film. We have to
Taraji
support
P.
her.
Henson, she did what was that? Hidden Figures.
And so many other films. We just saw her.
Yeah, but I'm talking about other films that have to do
historical,
with
actual people.
Yeah, people and dealing with the unfair and unequal treatment that ADOS has suffered in this country.
And then Sam Rockwell is a good actor too, so we said okay.
Yeah, but I have some questions about his acting though.
In this film.
Yeah. But we're gonna get to that. 1 second. I'm still populating here, letting people know that we're on as we go through. Listen.
Well, I have only one problem with the film.
Okay, yeah.
My only problem with the film is it was a good film. I mean, it was entertaining. It was good. Taraji P. Henson, of course, did an excellent job. Stellar. I mean, there was one scene with her, which
we're gonna get to that. Don't do that.
Hello, Wayne.
Hey, what's going on,
her
Wayne?
acting
Thanks
is
for
so
chiming
good.
in.
It not only you, but other people in the audience. You could hear them kind of.
Hey, Wayne, how are those Crazy D mixtapes, some classic ones you have, those CDs and cassettes you have? How are they doing for you? You know what I'm saying? Are you still remembering? They still play cassette and the DVDs. He reached out to me last year, like summertime, about it. But I'm on to film now, so we don't do the mixes anymore. But I did release a new classic mix on my Vimeo, on the film review Vimeo that is like an hour and 43 minutes long, which is some classic material that I spliced together to bring it up to the mix sound of today. So, you can go right there over to the Vimeo page, the film review, and check that out over there. But what's up to Wayne? He was one of my customers back in Cleveland when I had my store, and shout out to him. and keep it going. And hopefully you're booting those things and keeping my name alive in Cleveland as the mixed DJ that I, once were. But anyway, okay.
Once a DJ, always a DJ.
Yeah,
okay,
true.
so the problem that I had was
problem with the film.
Having family and when from different parts of the South.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the actor Babu Cisse, he played Bill Reddick.
Mm-hmm. Now, Bill Reddick, let's tell who he is.
Okay, go ahead.
As we before we give you the plot of the film.
Okay.
Bill Reddick is an organizer.
Okay.
I could definitely say that. He's called in by assistance to a judge that he was a bigot. He had Andrew Jackson on his wall. For all those who don't know, people who practice white supremacy racism, they love Andrew Jackson because he went in and killed up a lot of black people who they call Seminole. I'm pronouncing it wrong. Seminole Indians in Florida who were actually black people, right?
A lot of people don't know that. They don't know that.
Original
Native Americans
they killed up a lot of it. They killed up a lot of people, the original people, and then Virginia in the 1920s, they passed a law to say that people would no longer be called Native American.
The Native Americans,
they would be called,
didn't look like the people in the Clint Eastwood film.
Yeah. They would be called Negroes. But anyway, that's a whole nother story for a whole nother time. But anyway, so the judge has an assistant. The assistant calls the Bill Reddick character and says, "We need you to come on down here and do this." He said, "We know what you was doing in New York, and it was pretty good." He said, "New York is different than North Carolina."
Right.
And he said, "We know, but you didn't do it. Plus, he was getting paid to do it." So he came down. He's an organizer.
So that's who he is.
That's right. He came down. He made these what they call chalets chalets, right? Where the people get together and they get together and they iron out their differences. They make a board and then they vote in the end after ironing out all the differences and getting all the things together. He was good at that. Black man.
He played a major part in this role. But
go ahead.
But my problem is, so his character's being introduced and he's speaking and I'm listening to his dialect.
Because he's in North Carolina, but he's in a different part.
Yeah, and I'm listening and then I reach over to him. I said, okay, he's supposed to be playing Bill Reddick and he's from North Carolina.
Right.
And he's supposed to have a Southern accent. Now, this man is supposed to be a native Southerner. Right. But he doesn't sound like, So all through the film, I'm watching the film and I'm irritated because this man has an accent and he's supposed to be a Southern man.
He has an accent. He has a accent that has been trained to just be.
It's not good.
Just be universal.
It was horrible.
But you're supposed to be from North Carolina, Durham.
Right.
But your accent is not that of that. And matter of fact, we hear the African come through.
So this man, so the actor, he's a good actor, but the casting was horrible. Okay, because he's actually, they said he's from London?
London by way of... London,
so
African by way of London. So
he has this accent, and he's supposed to be playing a Southerner, and it just drove me crazy throughout the film. I'm like, what were they thinking? But anyway,
what were they thinking? They know that it's cheaper to hire actors that are not black actors. See, this is part of the invasion of the black body snatchers that we talk about. People like why we have plenty of black actors who can come in and tell this story.
Right.
Why do we need an African actor to come in and tell the story? That's what some people have problems with us about. Having this actor, right? And if people remember, if they didn't really get it and everybody was dressing up in a kente cloth, but when you watch Panther, the battle between Killmonger and Panther was about Killmonger saying that here you are with this vibranium, and you have this, and meanwhile the black people around the globe are suffering, but you could come out and help, but you haven't. as though it was an African bag. So everybody took on dressing in the kente cloth and the African thing, but Killmonger was from, though African, though his father was African, his mother was American.
Right. He
had lived a American upbringing as basically an ADOS. Right. And so this is what that story was about, and people ignored that. It's just like when you watch the NAACP and they had the crazy rich Asian people come out on stage, and I'm like, why are we? I mean, I know it's the National Association for National Association of Advancement of Colored People,
right?
But the NAACP was fighting a battle that they didn't necessarily have to fight, and they were there. Yes, they were. The guy came out and announced it. They had them. They were in a category.
Oh, I didn't know
to
that.
try to win, which sets people. You look at it and you say that's cool, but we're not included in their award ceremonies. You know, and you know most of. But anyway, that's a whole nother story.
But other than that,
anyway,
the film was
the film was good. So anyway, so he's an organizer. He puts this together, right? And he brings these
with a London accent or whatever.
Yeah, but he brings these two entities together. It was like he came over from England, and somehow he could put these chalets together. And but anyway, so he brings the character of Atwater,
right,
and
Ellis,
Ellis together, because you know they're on opposite ends of the spectrum, right? So let's go through this. So the film opens up, and you're introduced to both sides of the coin. Right. First, you're introduced to Atwater, right, and she is fighting for fairer housing. There is a landlord, kind of like today. Right. There's a landlord, kind of like what they said 45 was. There was a landlord, and he didn't even have toilets in the apartments that he was renting out for it, and different things were falling apart, and he said that he wouldn't do it. So they would go to the council meetings to try to iron this out. And of course, there was a white people's council, and then there was the KKK. The KKK, as told the story. Now, this is what makes the movie good.
Yeah, it explains.
You know, and then if you read or you do research, it explains how the KKK were the poor. Right. And the White People's Alliance, or the White Alliance, were the rich whites,
politicians.
The ones that may have, you know, owned slaves. Right. And then those people did not go off to fight the Civil War. The poor whites did. Went off and fight. So I mean, that's a whole nother story. Right. And which most people who fight human rights don't really understand why their brains don't click on the fact that they're being used. Right. Because anyway, another story. Who cares? Who cares about their part? Anyway, here we go. So C.P. Ellis, or what is his name? C.P. Ellis is kind of in between, because he owns a filling station, right? A station that not only fills gas but also works on cars. So he's kind of like a bridge between. They have him fooled that he's on the same level as the White Alliance, though he's Klan, and he's the head of the Klan. He is the Grand Cyclops. You know what they call the Grand Cyclops of that region is C.P. Ellis, right? So this is the thing that they break down with you now. So they show you the one side with them having, and so she's sitting in there, and that's when you see the preview, so we're not spoiling anything, but she takes the phone and cacks the dude on the back of the head, and then the guy comes in and he says, who comes in for her? That's the dude that's in the head of the White Council that's also running to be something right here.
Oh, Bruce McGill.
Yeah,
Harvey Oldham.
Right. Yeah, he plays the Oldham character. And he comes in and says, you're going to be able to speak tomorrow, right? So we haven't spelled that for you, right? So when you get there, it's nothing like the edit of the trailer. You know what I'm saying? There's a build up to Atwater's release, and you don't see it that day, because what they do is they call on the White Alliance calls on the Klan to come fill up the seats, so there are no seats for the black people to sit. So the black people had to do the traditional thing of standing up, like how they would stand on the bus. Do people understand why Rosa Parks didn't get up? I took a black rhetoric class with now rest in peace. I forget the teacher's name right now, but anyway, rest in peace to him. I took a black rhetoric class. Dr. Mims, that's who it was. And in the black rhetoric class, we're taught that what made the seating arrangement tedious in the South was, as more, you could be sitting up front, right? And they had a sign that said whites only. As more whites got on the bus, the sign would be moved back. So then you would have to get up. So by the time, depending on what stop you got to, if whites filled up 2/3 of the bus, you would be back there, and then everybody else would be crammed standing up. And so that is the example that they're showing you, that how they had all the seats filled up and they had to do the traditional thing of standing in the back, like standing or sitting in the back of the bus. And so that's what makes that so heinous, people. You know, and while the black people were the ones that were mainly using the bus, and that's why when they stopped paying the bus, it shut down everything, and then that brought about change, because they still needed that change, if you know what I mean. Change brought about change. Okay, so this is the story that you're in. Then a fire happens. You see that in the previews. That's no spoiler there. The fire happens, and then that's when the Atwater character is activated, and then the C.P. Ellis character is activated. And I tell you,
he's activated. They don't want black kids
to go to school with them. Now he has a, how can I say this? You've seen this in the previews too, people. He has a mentally challenged, what they would call back in the day retard, but now they might call it Down syndrome or whatever it is. He has a kid that's challenged by that, right? And so this is a pivotal story beat in the film, right, which comes back later, right? So he has compassion for this kid, right? And so the guy is called down. We told you that he's called down from Durham, North Carolina, because of the work that he did in New York City. And he's called in by the judge, who again is a white supremacist. His assistant calls him in, because I have this guy that does this thing. And so he calls him in, and he comes down. He wants Atwater and Ellis to be the chairpersons for each opposite group. The one for the whites, one for the blacks, right? And so this is where the story really kicks off, and you're introduced to every aspect of it. And I swear, I haven't heard these many niggas being thrown out in a movie since
maybe Django.
I haven't heard these many niggas being thrown out in a movie since Django Unchained, right? I mean, it gets so bad that even at a point in a meeting, the Atwater character calls a person who she believes to be a quote-unquote Uncle Tom after the whites have been over there saying nigga this and nigga that. She even says, what kind of nigga? I mean, I'm like, damn! I mean, like, it's so many, and you're sitting in the theater. It reminds me of something that my mother said, because my father was in the Air Force, and they were stationed in the Dakotas. And she said that they would go to the movies, and the Indians, hey, what's going on, Jermaine? What's going on? How you doing? Thanks for chiming in. she said that my father was stationed in the Dakotas, and they would go to the movies and they would be showing the Indian pictures, like the John Wayne shits and now John Wayne's, and they killing up all the Indians, and the Indian people would be in there, the ones that are considered Native American today. They'd be sitting in there, and my mother would look around like, what's gonna happen here? And so sitting in the theater, and I didn't know if the European Americans, hey, what's going
Brittany.
on? Thanks for chiming in. I didn't know if the European Americans that were sitting in the theater were coming there to talk about, to see how integration came about in this particular story, or if they were there to remember the good old times when the N-word, nigga, would be just thrown out everywhere, and she was throwing it out. And I said, wow.
The CP Ellis was
throwing it out, and when they had secret meetings about trying to derail the chalets or the chateaus or whatever they call it, they would be saying these niggas don't need to be around us. So wait a minute, let me finish.
Okay.
So because I haven't got through it.
I didn't fall asleep in the movie.
It was so good. Now listen, the story is well-meaning.
Yes.
I mean, her acting is great, but my question on the white actors, like, how much acting did they have to do to say the N-word? I mean, I don't know how much acting that is, so I don't know how much acting they could get an award for that. But Taraji could definitely get an award for transforming into who she transformed into. Most definitely, and the way she delivers. You don't even remember or even think that it's Taraji P. Henson up there on the screen. That's how good her acting is, right?
You're seeing her as Anne Atwater.
That's right. Story is well-meaning but misplaced in this time we're living in. There's a scene. Now, we reviewed and talked about American Gods, the show that comes on Stars.
Right.
We talked about the second season and how the first 3 episodes were like pretty much, the first 2 episodes we saw that first.
Right.
Then we saw the 3rd episode and it was pretty much trash.
But 4.
Wait a minute. They changed writers. Right? They had changed writers before the season, and that's why it took so long for it to come back. Right. The other writers, they had the folklore, the mythos, everything about the gods, right?
Right.
And, especially the black gods, right?
Right.
And so the first 3 episodes was trash, and we said it was trash, but then the 4th episode, it looked like they had picked up some old scripts from the previous writers, and now it's on track. In the 5th episode, you can basically watch the first season of American Gods, and then drop off the first 3 episodes of the second season and pick up with the 4th episode going into the 5th and let it roll on right now, because it's on the 5th episode. We don't know what they're gonna do. They might flip the script
next
again,
week.
right? But for right now, it's good. But there's a character in there who was lynched in this small town called Cairo back in the 20s. And you know what he was
Cairo,
lynched?
Illinois.
That's right. You know what he was lynched for, people? He was lynched for crossing paths with a white woman in the street. They just crossed paths. She looked at him. He looked at her. He turned around and looked at her as she passed. I don't know why he did that. But anyway, then they show you the men standing around, the European American men standing around looking. Next thing you know, she winds up dead somehow. Right? And so automatically you think throughout history, okay, usually when that happens, that's the jealous European American that killed the woman because she was looking at a black man, and then they go and kill both. They kill the woman and then they go get the man. So they lynched him, and his character comes back to this town and wreaks havoc, not on European Americans but on black people. And this is what this particular episode is about. And he says this. He says, he's talking about European Americans, whites. He talks to the shadow character. He comes to the shadow character as not a vision, because he's actually awake and walking. So he's come to him as an apparition. They are very sorry for their primal hate of us. And what he means by that is their animalistic desire to kill us. They know that they are wrong in doing it, but they just can't stop it because, like a beast in the wild, they can't stop it. And so this particular episode, when you watch episode 5, it breaks it down and it's written so beautifully. And then it's more, once it gets on talking about the black characters and the black gods, and they get on that, it's really well done. So this is why this film is misplaced, which with the main film that we're talking about, which is the best of enemies, is it saying that if we can just show them that we're human, that they will treat us better. This is what the message of the film is. And that if we show that we are compassionate and that we're human, then thus they will then go on and show us the same compassion. And this is where the storyline is flawed and where it becomes just another one of those great civil rights movies, because this is not about how human you are.
Right.
Because we are human.
Right.
We are human.
Right.
But this is about the primal desire to destroy a group of people who they are jealous and envious of. That's what it's about. Right. So this story, the push for integration in the film, was celebrated by the audience. We were listening to the audience.
Right.
Hey, what's going on, Shannon?
Hey, Shannon.
Hey, thanks for chiming in. We were listening to the audience, and then when the things came up, like you'll see something in the film that happens and the people are applauding. But that's like programming. Martin Luther King said in the interview, he said he felt that he was leading his people into a burning house by dealing with integration. It was not about integrating and living in necessary neighborhoods. It was about desegregation so that they would stop killing. And when integration happened, people forgot about shopping at the stores. Matter of fact, there's a scene in the film
and
where...
what did I say to you?
Right. There's a scene in the film where, because they're so grateful, and I'm sure that there was a black gas station that lost all its customers because people said integration.
And they switched over to CPL.
They went out, yeah, really. But you'll see. You have to see the film.
So people are like clapping in the cinema when, and then I'm like, well, okay, but now that the black community is supporting him. Cars and cars. I said,
because
well, what about the black gas station owner, And the people are clapping and cheering. I'm like,
do people really know what that really means?
People just...
Right. The acting was good, like we said.
Right.
Taraji P. Henson, on her behalf, I'll say that there is a scene in the film. Right. You see it in the trailer, but you don't see it in its full capacity of what it does. And it has to do with the Ku Klux Klan uniform that is propped up in the hallway.
Hey, Tamika.
And I could tell you that if it does not bring some emotion to you, the way Taraji P. Henson nails
excellent
this.
Actress.
I mean, So, there's a now let's get to it. It's the son.
Right.
That's thanks for chiming in, Tamika. Yeah. The son is I'm just gonna say they were calling it what they were calling. I don't know what they call that today, Down syndrome. But he was a retard. That's what they called him.
That's what they called him in the film.
So we're gonna stay with that because everything was raw and loose, and so let's stay raw and loose on this for a minute. Okay. So, right. So, so Atwater hears this. Right. And it's the compassion of being a human being. Now, here are these people that will want to lynch you.
Yeah.
But you go there and you have a person that's working there because of desegregation.
Right.
And you say, I need a favor. And then next thing you know, everything is honky-dory for C.P. Ellis as far as his son is concerned. But we're still dealing with this situation. The Klan is going in, intimidating people.
Right.
And, you know, and then there's a scene during a vote sequence where there's a white woman that stands up there, young white woman, young European American, and I'm sitting up there, everybody's sitting on pins and needles. I said, I know how she gonna vote just because of what happened, and don't hold your breath. And sure enough, but like I said, the movie for that, you know, the characters, the acting done by the Klan in the film, the actions in the opening and introducing each side of the coin, so to speak.
Right.
The actions of the Klan in this film were romanticized. They even had a nice song playing while the Klan was doing this, doing an action. They were taking an action against someone, and they're playing this nice song, and you're sitting up there like, why are they romanticizing the Klan?
Wasn't it supposed to be like a contrast? Like
I mean,
to show
contrast.
During something, while something horrific is going on.
That's what they were thinking, that they were doing beautiful. They were doing something good, right? So it's still romanticized. It's coming in their mind, and yet you see on the black side of things, there's nothing but angst, right? There's no agency other than the belligerence of the Atwater character going at the people. For the most part, all the black characters are quiet or play the stereotypical role other than the Atwater character. Whereas the Klan is the Klan, and it's romanticized in this film, right? The black characters, like I wrote down on my notes, are doing just what they do best in films. They have kindness and love towards those that want to lynch them. This is what makes this a standard, everyday civil rights film. Totally different than told from the focus of a black man's eye in Spike Lee's Black Klansman.
Yeah, because this is white writers.
That's right, which gave no quarter or no protection to the Klan whatsoever. It showed the brutality of the Klan and showed the aspects of how black people had agency and were mobilizing against that threat. That's what's shown in Black Klansman, and thus the person fooling the Klan and becoming the Black Klansman, right? So the temperature and the tenet is different. And what I mean by that, the temperature of these two films, as far as Spike Lee's Black Klansman, and I don't know who actually produced this film, you know, for the enemies. We'll look that up real quick and come back to it. But the best of enemies, the temperature on these two films are totally different. And the tenet, when I say tenet, I mean like
produced by Matt Berenson and Fred Bernstein. So they were
yes. So you see, and then if you go watch the review
Toby
on
Maguire,
what was that?
Matt Plouffe.
Yeah, right.
All white men.
See that Operation Finale tells you what I'm not going to say all some Jewish writers think, because in the film you would say there could be no way they would have any anti-black racism in the film, and sure enough it is. Go back and watch that review on Operation Finale. You have to watch these films to see what they think about you, okay? So you see the difference in the tenant. When I'm saying tenant, I mean like living in a dwelling. The person living in the mind, the temperature and the tenant in the mind is totally different. One is told from an outside point of view, just like the James Brown story that Dan Aykroyd produced. It was told from a total outside view, looking in at James Brown.
Yeah.
So was Ali was told. The Ali story with Will Smith was told, but it had Spike Lee told it, it would have been an inside out because of certain experiences that are the same. And that's what's wrong with this film, because the tenant there is doesn't, it may have good intentions or may not have had good intentions and just masked good intentions by having nigger being thrown all throughout the film. More times, I think, than Django had. Right. You know, Django had 127.
Well, you know, black people was kicking butt in Django, so
they were kicking butt, but you had to exchange for kicking butt by hearing nigga all the way through the film.
Well, there was no kicking butt in this.
No kicking butt in this film. And even when the time came when there was going to be the disruption, Atwater stops it, which leads to the powerful scene.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, people, the tenant is different. Yeah. If they cannot tell our stories, don't try to tell our stories. However, we can tell their stories because we have lived and been subject to the horror that is white supremacy, racism, eugenics, etc.
I feel like when telling our story, there are many black writers. Right. Many black writers who could have told the stories, and black producers and directors, and so but the Taraji P. Henson, her acting was great.
Yes. So let's I have to break the film down into different sections to be fair. See, unfortunately, we're always fair about these things. You know, as people, we're fair. Right. Maybe not too fair to each other, but we're fair to the other. Okay. But I'm not doing this. I'm being fair because, you know, I'm talking about Taraji P. Henson. Now,
we like her.
The dressing of the period of 1971. The costume design, A1. Yeah. Okay? A1. So I'm going to get at a 10. The costume designers on American Soul on BET could take some notes from this. Because the clothing, though it's in that period, is not as authentic as it is. It has to do, like, there was a lot of more slimness and thinness than it is today, and then the clothing just, it looks like it but it doesn't look like it, and you can come closer. So looking at films that are period pieces like this, that are based in the 70s, the prop the designer and the layout of clothing is right there. So I had to give it a 10. The acting, I give it a 10 as far as Taraji P. Henson and the black actor is concerned, but I have to ask again, how much acting could it be?
Sam Rockwell did well.
He did good, but you know, it's not hard to go into that character when.
Well, you know, other than saying the N word, I mean, you know, his acting was good. He's just a good actor, period. But that Babu Sensei,
the way that.
I just can't get over somebody with the London or English accent, whatever the accent was, it like you're there and trying to. The Southern just was not working because he still sounded like he was from overseas, and it was just driving me crazy in the film.
Crazy. The use of African actors in place of American actors, ADOS, is problematic. That's why I give that portion of the movie a 6.
I mean, because the thing about it is that. Excellent acting, spending time on your craft, right? Idris Elba. I've seen him in many films and he can do the Southern accent, but then Idris Elba has relationships with black Americans. He's not like just an actor from overseas who only interact with white Americans, right? So Idris Elba has relationships within the black American community, right? So, and he respects and you can hear it in his craft. Like when he's playing a Southerner, he sounds like a Southerner, right? But this guy, there was just no respect, and it just seemed so disrespectful to me. You know, you're playing this man who played a very, very important,
pivotal,
right, in American history. You know, this black man, and you don't even take the time to master the dialect. Disrespectful,
because we are
right
Americans. Let's not get it. Just our existence and how we've had to go through this is our existence. So we're Americans. So as we are being represented on film, we need actors who have come from that, to be able to go to that. But if you are so hired because you're cheaper to get, then master the craft and have respect for the black American that you are playing. Right? We have some people who say, D'Angelo, he said, well, I'm going to see it. Rosalind said, the public sounds good. Got to check it out. D'Angelo said, so was it a film that you didn't want to end? Like, how good is it? Was it?
For which one?
I guess he was
like
talking
the public. I didn't want to end because it was good, right? Because the way it ended, you kind of wanted to see. Okay, so I'm not going to tell the film, but the way it ended, you wanted more. You wanted more to see what more of the outcome. But yeah, the public was excellent.
Now the Atwater story, excellent acting again. Taraji P. Henson wanted that film to end.
Yeah, I did too.
I mean, like, it was just crazy.
They was just pissing me off the way they treated, you know, I mean, I know it's a historical piece, but it's just like, there are other parts.
It is this American history that we have
They
lived.
pick and choose what parts they don't like to show when black Americans stood up and fought back, and they, you know, just,
they don't want to show
they
that.
don't want to show
always
that.
make you feel like you were like,
passive.
Please don't, and that's not true.
Right.
Because we wouldn't be here, we were passive.
Right.
And then, you know, this American history is so heinous because they were lynching people that were coming back from the war.
Right.
Who had fought for this country, and they didn't get off of their backwoods coon. See, when I was in high school, I thought coon meant white folks. I really did. You know, because I would watch those old movies, and I was like, they're in the backwoods, they're not clean, they like cooter. You know what I mean? So that's what I thought.
Right.
You know, so when hearing the word coon and being used against black folks because of their actions towards trying to appease European Americans, I'm like disturbed by that, because I always thought coon meant them. It more describes them than it would describe us. We would have to have another word for those who choose to sell out. But for those who believe, quote unquote, right? But the heinousness of hanging people in their military uniforms because you didn't have the gumption, because you were jealous and you didn't have the gumption and you were afraid that people would take the rightful place. All this has always been about making sure on their end that black folks did not take their rightful place in a country that they built, right? And so that's what flaws this movie to the extent of always saying, if they could just see how good we are, how dressed we are, how this and that, they will treat us better. And when actuality, black American Gods, the black character that said they are sorry for their primal hate of us, right? And that's what it is. When you break it down, that is a flaw. That's a mental flaw. So anyway, let's continue as I break down the film. So I said 10 for dress, 10 for the acting on her part, 6 as far as the use of African actors instead of American actors to tell this story.
Well, he was London,
so I gave him a 6,
London,
but he's African, you know, by way of England. It's just like we're Cleveland by way of Las Vegas right now. The brainwashing. If we only, that's what I was talking about. If we only could show them that we were human, then they would treat us equally. I give that unequivocally and totally undeniably. It should be rated a 3. Just for that, 3. So thus, I rate the film.
Oh,
what do you rate the film?
Oh, you said you give it a 3?
No. I said that part. I'm getting ready to come up with my main score of it. But what would you rate the film?
Excuse me. I would give it a Like a 5.
That's close because that's good. I rated it a 4.
Okay.
That's right. For those reasons, right? Just for those reasons, it's the same old trying to brainwash you instead of waking you up to the fact that this is a genetic, mental genetic flaw that each generation of them say, "Oh, we're sorry for what we did." They say they're sorry for what was done 50 years ago, but what's going on right now, they can't see it until 50 years later, which throws you 50 years back. See the game?
You know what I
see the game?
Yeah,
that's a game.
You know what
being played.
What I noticed in the theater. So at the end of the film, and then the hall. Do you remember the two ladies? They said, "Oh, it was a good film," you know, and I said, "Oh yeah, it was a good film." And then the one woman said to the other woman, she said, "Yeah, it was a good film, but this film they need to show to white kids." And then and what I was thinking was, like in this film, like you said, like the black characters in the film were trying to prove how they are good Americans, worthy, good Americans, and trying to prove themselves. But like in the film, they didn't show like the white people in the film trying to be better, or saying how what we're doing is wrong. Like even a so-called liberal, right, white Americans who were friendly with the black Americans, it was nothing like trying to prove how, you know, we should be better. We should treat African Americans with respect. You know, we're all one people. We all the Taraji P. Henson. What did she say? We all have the same blood. I believe like you. And,
you saw that in the previews.
You saw it in the previews, right? But so it was more so the black people were trying to prove that they're decent and good people. But I didn't see how they didn't have the white characters trying to prove how they
were decent
and good people. And I'm not talking about the ones who are in the Klan or in the white Alliance Council. I'm talking about the ones who were supposed to be considered friends of black people. Right. You know, so they didn't like say, you know, it was wrong what their people were doing and how, you know.
They never said it was wrong. They always said, well, he went to Vietnam with me and he was braver than me. Trying to always say that you need to accept. Right. That's the message, right? Yeah. And even when there were discussions, like they would break off into their groups, they had the extras breaking off into classrooms. Right. It was just a montage, and it was music over it, passing through, showing sequences of scenes. Right, it was a sequence showing scenes, montaging, showing them ironing out and arguing in the room. But there was never a scene where a white person in the film was saying, you know, what the Klan is doing and what the white consul is doing is wrong and it's a defect. None of that. It's always trying to prove, right? So all of that being said, I gave it a 4 due to the fact it's holding us up. Look, okay, they held us up for a second. It is not as well written as the public or Yardy. No. Because cinematically it doesn't tell a story through images. It's too busy. The art of storytelling through images in this picture is lost because they're trying too hard to push an agenda.
Exactly.
And so that's why I give the film a 4, and that might be even kind of generous.
I gave it 5 generously because of Taraji P. Henson, but because like if her acting wasn't as good as it is in the film,
it would
be like I would give.
But the brainwashing element of it, I gave it a 3. That old brainwashing, we could just prove and show. You know, they were killing black dudes. The patty rollers were killing black dudes when they were in 3-piece suits, or the little boys were in knickerbockers with the apple hats. And it doesn't matter if your pants are sagging.
We're dressed to the nines.
It doesn't matter. They're gonna if they're there to do it, if they're there to be a 250-pound pumped up on some kind of roids person choking out a 95-pound scrawny black child until their eyes roll back in their head, that's what they want to do because it is a defect.
Limit to you, yeah.
That's right.
Okay,
So now, there was an election here in Las Vegas, people.
Right.
There was an election in Las Vegas. No. Well, it was a primary election in Las Vegas where if people get at least 51% of the vote, then they wouldn't have to go to a runoff in November, right? So the mayor here in Las Vegas, Mayor Goodman, was up for re-election, and she's term limited, so this will be her last 4-year term.
Oh.
Right? But altogether, her husband herself have altogether will be 24 years of what they call public service, or what I would say ownership of basically running Las Vegas.
Okay.
Right? So there's a young upstart
Right.
coming from out of the historic West. Now, for people who don't know in Las Vegas, who are chiming in and coming in from other places,
Right.
Wayne also said the mixtapes were awesome. Thanks, Wayne. Coming in from people who don't know, the historic West was the place where black people started to settle in the 20s because they would not allow black people to live anywhere else.
Right.
The Strip, as it was being built, was segregated.
Right.
And even as you come into the 30s, 40s, 50s,
Right.
into the 60s, there was segregation, and so many of the stars would live in many of the stars would go stay in the historic West, which is about, depending on if you drive through the streets, it's about maybe 20-25 minutes, or if you get on the freeways, I don't know how the freeways were back then, it's about 10-15 minutes, right? So they would stay there, and that was the historic West. So the first black school where the radio station is located, KCEP, is a historic landmark, and it was the first black school, right? And there are a lot of people who came through that elementary school, still today, still living, not that old, right? So there's a regentrification happening in the historic West. It's been planned out. It's probably, my uncle got into insurance back into the 80s, and he came and told us that European Americans have the plans 60 years out, and it's just working those 60 years out. Now, it was 60 years out then, it could be 100 years out now, and rolling the plans on through, and as they keep going, they keep on doing it. And when we ask people, what is your 5-year, like I ask people in interviews, what's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? Because these people are on 50, 60, 80, 100-year plans. So all of this is playing out, right? So here comes this young upstart named Stretch Sanders. He's a young 24-year-old who, it's always good to be able to organize. And organization is good. Kwame Ture said organization is good, but to be able to mobilize is what it is. You can organize people, and people will say, yes, I'm with you, brother, I'm with you, brother. But when you're locked up and you need people to mobilize, to man the phones, to call and jam the phone lines, to ensure that you're treated correctly, and even ensure that the powers that be tire out and release you, you need mobilization. This is what this young upstart is able to do. He is able to mobilize. So this is what it is. Now, he to me, now this is just me. I'm just on the outside looking in. I look through the 16:9. Anybody who knows what that means, I look through the 16:9 because I'm a filmmaker and I look at things differently. My mind works different than most because I observe. I'm an observer. I sit back and I observe people and I observe situations. So my mind processes differently. Okay? So I'm sitting here and I already know that the guy can not only organize, but he can mobilize. He can mobilize the people to move, to come out, to do. Okay. So how I knew that he was seen as a threat to the last term, potential term. Right. Hey, what's going on, Jerome Brown? Thanks for chiming in. He was a potential threat for the last 4-year term for Mary Goodman. She put commercials on the radio.
And I thought that was weird because I remember I said to you, gosh, in 7 years, I've never heard her do a commercial
on that radio. Right. So she put a commercial on the radio station. Now,
so I'm like, oh, he must be lighting a fire.
He must be lighting a fire. Because it was always a coattail shoe in. It was always, good, right?
Right.
So I'm gonna say this, and I'm, people, saying, play this back and listen to this and break it down. These commercials went over. Now, remember I said 24 years. Now, if anyone knows about the history of slavery and plantations, when most of the time the female, the wife, outlived the slave master. So thus all of the things were passed down and inherited by her.
Right.
In this case, it was term limits that ended her husband, but she picked up and through votes, inherited, and now she's there into term limits to end. And who knows what happens next, right? Does it pass down again? So we're talking about plantation now. So commercials go over the radio. Talking about that because there's a young upstart that may upheave the apple cart.
Right.
So then things start going out. Oh, he doesn't have a plan. He doesn't have this. He doesn't have that. Oh, he's too young. Listen. In Cleveland, Ohio, back in the 80s, we had a young mayor, Dennis Kucinich. He was 18 years old.
Right.
18 years old. Guess what? Cleveland, Ohio is still there.
Right.
To me, this is my opinion. Just looking through the 16:9 and processing differently. Stretch could do no worse for the people of the historic West than the person that's in there, because the person that's in there is moving in my opinion, moving the process and the steady to regentrify the area, that it will be rebuilt back up, but the people will not be able to afford to live there. So he could do no worse than what the person could do, and he would get in there and slow the process down.
And what did I say to you? I said because of his love for his community, he would be an ally. So when we vote, we went in, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, he's going to get a lot of votes because he's active in the community and he would be an ally. But
just to, even if it wasn't enough, it was a large enough number to let the powers that be know that there will be a shift. There's a show that comes on the radio station that talks about making a shift in your life. It would have been enough votes to say that there will be a shift in what is happening, even if it wasn't. But let's so happen that he flipped it because it was a low turnout in voting.
Okay.
Right? let's say that he had got those votes and everybody there voted, and he just so happened to have got it. The argument about a person being legitimate is a European American argument to discredit those that came into office after the Emancipation Proclamation and just before Reconstruction started in the South. It was a way to destroy those and say that they did not have legitimate and when they didn't have legitimacy and they weren't able to hold the job. That is a European American thought process that is based in white supremacy, racism, and eugenics, prejudice, bigotry, and all of it. And as you, as a black person, follow that trend, you are nothing but a black person. You are nothing but a white person with black skin. Let's say that again. If you follow that, you are nothing but a white person with black skin. Because he could do no worse than what is in there for the people in the historic West. He could do no worse. He could only slow it down, get the information, and be able to put it out there to the people so it would not be a guessing game. It would not be, oh, you know, they always do this. He would have been able to be in there and say, this is what this is. This is how long the plan has been. Like my uncle came when he got an insurance and was able to look at the plans of real estate over 60 and 70 years that had been planned 60 or 70 years ago, just coming to fruition then in the 90s. Putting those commercials across the radio station ensured that the plantation will be regentrified and that the person, through term limits, not death, but through term limits, they end, but then somebody else in that camp can inherit again if people do not get smarter with their vote. You have to be strategic and think with your vote and get that out your mind that there is a lack of legitimacy. The reason why black people are legitimate is because throughout it all, throughout eugenics, throughout bigotry, prejudice, racism, white supremacy, lynching, drawn quartering, feathering, castration, raping, we are still here. And that's what makes us legitimate. So when you see a person, those people who mobilize for him, my opinion now, because his cousin Maria said in a post on Facebook that 288 people, he knows more than 288 people personally. That's how many people voted for him, right? Those same people who will mobilize and come out to the events and do what they do, they did not have enough faith in him. And this is something that you have to work out in your own mind. They did not have enough faith in him and think of him as legitimate enough to go cast a vote to shake the table up. Shake the table up. Shake the table up. So we were sitting at lunch on Friday after Like It Is radio, because I shoot that every Friday. And I sat there at the table and we were sitting there and I said, the only thing that I see, and I process different because I look through the 16:9 and I observe, I see a lot more than most people see. And I can sit right there in it and see it. I said, what I see is, it's either love or hate. And what I see there is, with 288 votes, but he can mobilize thousands, that it's some self-hate being played there. And self-hate has to be worked out on each person's individual way. It's either love, either you are black, you're saying blackity black, ADOS, Afrocentric, Pan-African. You're saying all this, but then when it comes time to shake the table up, hey, what's going on, Minister Stretch? We're just speaking about you. When it's time to shake the table up and vote, just strategically, he could get in there and slow it down, right? Put out the plan so it wouldn't be a mystery about how they're regentrifying. When it came down to it, it's love or hate. This is what I see. So that means that it's either love, either you're black, blackity black, ADOS, Pan-African, Afrocentric, da-da-da-da, or you have a self-hate problem, and that each person has to work that out for themselves. I went there and voted for them because I don't suffer from self-hate. I know that we are legitimate for exactly what I said before. The anti-legitimacy tag put on black people are put on by white supremacists who wanted to get rid of the politicians that were in Washington doing Reconstruction in the South. And what do they call Las Vegas but the Mississippi of the South? Watch it. So, people, if you say you're black, if you say you're ADOS, if you say you're Pan-African, if you say that you're Afrocentric and you love your people, you should have went there and voted just to shake the numbers of the city. There is going to be a shift. Right. There's going to be a shift. We're not going to have the inheritance going from the slave master to the slave mother to the children. That's all it was. So you have to figure that out for yourself. You have to figure it out for yourself. But the man could have done no worse than Dennis Kucinich. And Cleveland, Ohio is still there. He was 18 back in the 80s. 78 through the 80s. He was 18. He's 24. He knows how to mobilize. Right. And the same people who mobilize, you have to work in your head and say, and you know what? He still has love, though. He still love. Right after it happened, he still continues. You see what I'm saying? Because Cornel West said, the very people that you're trying to help will rot from you and rip pieces of your flesh out in criticism and things, because it's a hard road to toe. And to have love for people who would do that to you, but they smile all the time. I can't smile on a person's face and say, I'm blackity black, I'm ADOS, I'm Pan-African, I'm this, I'm that, and not vote for them.
But you know what you do? You can't. Let's not forget, like, history, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think even Muhammad Ali's daughter said it. There were black people who, when Muhammad Ali changed his name from Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali, there were some black people who, along with white people, oh, he's a troublemaker. Why did he do that? Right? Let's not forget that although now everyone loves Martin Luther King, there were some black people who said, what? He's a troublemaker. They didn't agree with him. Don't forget, there were black people who, although everybody loves him now, who was against Malcolm X. So it's
Medgar Evers,
and on and on and on and on. You know, some slaves saying that Harriet Tubman, he's a troublemaker.
Women, W.E.B. Du Bois,
Sojourner Truth,
Marcus Garvey.
I'm about to go tell Master on her. So
W.E.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, Booker T. Washington, they were at each other's
on and on and on. So it's just
people, you know. It's disheartening, but we keep the struggle continues. Right. But so that's what it is, and that's what we say. You know, we can't, as a group of people, if we want, either we have to admit that we're just going to go with the flow and we like what it is, and that once they regentrify, they're not going to find a new place for you to go and you will be homeless. Or like the people who have been so far that I hear that it was filled of buildings, but those people now are homeless. Either we're ready to go with the flow, or we're really about change and dropping the miseducation of the Negro from out of our minds. If you haven't read that book, which is a group of essays by Carter G. Woodson, go get that book and read it. It's still as potent as it was back then because nothing has changed. Either we have to admit that we want to go with the flow, we want to just pontificate. Right. Look up the word pontificate.
And listen to the lyrics of the Kendrick Lamar song in the song DNA. I think sometimes it's just whatever's in your
right. So
DNA.
If maybe we just want to pontificate and just want to do with it. But me, I say I'm a black man. I saw the man able to mobilize. And all people have to do is come together. Everybody has a gift.
Right.
We were talking to someone else who happened to stop at the table. I'm not going to say any names, but things will be coming up in the future. But he spoke about person having this ability and that ability. If one person has the ability to be a radio personality, other person has the ability to mobilize, another one has the ability to teach, another one has the ability to put across a crystal clear image with great quality sound that will stand the test of time and not be dust and be there into the future telling the story, then all these people come together to make it happen and not worry about the games that have been played by European Americans against the psyche of black people, saying that we are not worthy. And so that's what we're going to leave that, people. I mean, I could beat it. We could go on for hours with it and go through all kinds of facets of the diamond and how, the light should shine through to bring out these different facets, but we're going to leave it right there. The problem is love and self-hate. Either you do love or it's self-hate. So that's what we're going to leave it. This has been another, and see the public, because
excellent film.
Because this situation was not slowed down, and all they had to do is think strategically, get vote to slow this process down. You may need to see the public. Yeah. Shout out to the people who are out there. Operation, I can't think of it right now. Excuse me for that. With Let's Go to Work Entertainment, Shantae and her husband Eddie
helping
out there feeding
community.
The homeless, right? You may need to see the public to understand what could be coming very soon, because this did not get slowed down, and that's all it was. Just thinking strategically. So this has been a robust episode. This is episode 54. 54 episodes of the film review. So we reviewed the public. We reviewed the best of enemies. We talked about the film review music review show that's coming on. Deadline to put in ads to show. We have ad space. April 15th. Deadline for songs to be submitted by artists to show. Absolutely free, no charge. We're making sure you're just seen, heard, recognized, appreciated to be in independent films and Hollywood movies. April 15th. Show debuts globally April 30th. And we talked about the Stretch Sanders candidacy and what it means and what it meant and what it means now for the future and the whole psychological situation that it meant. So, again, you have been watching the film review. Movies, music, culture, politics, and society. We are the husband and wife team. I'm Crazy D.
Tracey.
And we review movies, music, culture, politics, and society. And we'll see you next time on the film review.
This is another great episode of the film review.
We are the husband and wife team. We are the husband and wife team. We are the husband and wife team. Stay tuned. We're the husband and wife team. I'm Crazy D. And this is the film review. Stay tuned. We got a lot to talk about. We are the husband and wife team that review movies, music, culture, politics, and society. This is the film review. Movies, music, culture, politics, and society. We're the husband and wife team. I'm Crazy D.
Tracey.
And we review movies, music, culture, politics, and society. Sunday at 5:30 on Crazon Dion page on Facebook. Live stream the film review. Movies, music, culture, politics, and society.
Film Review.